Hello, and welcome to the Art of Selling Online Courses. We are here to share winning strategies and secret hacks from top performers in the online business industry. My name is John Ainsworth, and today's guest is Greg Elfrink. Greg is the head of marketing at Empire Flippers, which is the #1 largest curated M&A marketplace in the world for buying and selling online businesses. And Greg's job is he helps educate the market, helps entrepreneurs to understand how they can level up their life through a successful exit or how to grow a portfolio of profitable acquisitions. And today we're going to be talking about the asset flywheel strategy and how entrepreneurs can use it to become financially free. Now, before we start learning from Greg, I want to mention our sponsor. And today's sponsor is my company, Data Driven Marketing. We help online course creators increase their online course revenue 2 to 5 times through strategic funnel optimization. If you want to know how much more money you could be making from your online course business, then go to datadrivenmarketing.co/calculator, fill in the form, and we will figure out for you personally how much you could be getting, record your personalized video, and send it back to you with the details. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Hopefully I'll be able to add a lot of value to your audience.
Nice. So I teased it already, the asset flywheel strategy. Can you explain to people like at a high level, what is that?
Sure. So this is something I've coined after being with EF for almost 6 years, and something I've seen our customers actively do, but no one really talks about it in a systemized kind of way. So basically what the asset flywheel is it's taking the concepts of selling and buying businesses and combining them into one strategy that allows an entrepreneur to basically snowball and grow a massive amount of wealth over a fairly short period of time using both capital management and also the concepts of buying and selling businesses.
Nice. Okay. Now you mentioned before to me that it's connected and kind of similar to the FIRE movement. So could you first of all explain for anybody who doesn't know, what is the FIRE movement?
Sure.
Yeah, let's start with that.
Sure. So the FIRE movement, it stands for financial independence, retire early. The godfather of it all was Mr. Money Mustache, for anyone out there. And the concept is very simple, that you can retire in far less than 30 years if you save like 50% of your income and then just invest it into low risk, conservative investments like index funds, for example. That's usually the main one that the FIRE crowd talks about. You can significantly shorten that period from 30 years down to 10 to 15 years if you do it. And it's all about being frugal. It is about really managing your money well, having a budget and being disciplined. And you could do amazing stuff if you do that. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs love this concept, but there's a big problem with it because, the FIRE movement preaches this diversified, low risk investment. But then you have us, the entrepreneurs, who are doing literally the most risky job in the world in terms of like the volatility, right? Like most businesses fail. And not only that, but most entrepreneurs are not diversified. Like 80% of their net worth is in their super risky asset known as their business, right? So there's already some issues here. So I taken the concepts of the frugality of the FIRE movement and applied it to the asset flywheel. So the asset flywheel is kind of like a strategy to FIRE for entrepreneurs, made for entrepreneurs.
Interesting. And I think one of the things, right, you're talking about, okay, it's really risky having a business. Lots of businesses don't make it. But on the flip side, an online business that is run well is like grows so much faster than stocks and shares and dividends and, property. And I've got money in all of those things. And none of them are growing anywhere near the rate of the business. Like, oh my God, we 4 times our revenue last year. And we're making so much more from the work that we're doing. Whereas you compare that to oh, look, I got 7% return. It's that's great. I didn't do anything for it. The money just sat there, but it's very, very different. So I think this sounds fascinating. The idea of pulling these two kind of concepts together. You've got the fast growth, you've got the opportunity to have that massive growth. But then how do you lower the risk? How do you use some of these concepts? So what's the concepts that you are using from InFire? Just spell that one out for me again.
Sure. So, and to just expand a little bit on what you just said there, that's the secret sauce of this strategy is that because you are an entrepreneur and you are building what is effectively a system of leverage, right? If you build a good business, it becomes a system of leverage where hopefully, ideally, you're not even that important anymore to the business. That should always be your goal, to build out a team, and then it just starts moving on its own, so to speak. And that secret ingredient of you being able to grow an online business or almost any business, but online business especially, so fast can allow you to actually achieve what the fire movement preaches in 10 to 15 years in really 5 years or maybe even less. I've seen it done in 3 years. So the concept of what you do is that first business you are building up. Once it gets to a certain level, and we can talk about valuations and stuff later on. Once it gets to a certain level, you go and sell that business. So that's the first real big movement to the asset flywheel. And before that, you're saving all the money you earn. Basically, every dollar is bent to this singular purpose of growing a big enough war chest to allow you to go and acquire more businesses. So once you sell your business, that's when you get the real big first push of the flywheel, because now you have all this capital. Often it is the life-changing capital is the most capital windfall you probably have ever had, whether it's 150,000, 500,000, or a few million, right? We've helped entrepreneurs do all of this stuff. We've created about 70 millionaires now at the time of this recording, just on the point of exit. We're still far away from hitting 1,000 millionaires, but getting there. But so once you do that, that's when the asset flywheel starts moving, and you are now have something that I call the doors of possibilities. So the doors of possibilities is where you have this capital to do all sorts of stuff. You can do the more safer route, index funds, real estate. You can go retire on a beach, whatever. You have the ability to do things that just were not possible before because you didn't have the flexibility that liquidity gives you, in this case, the capital, right? Now with asset flywheel, what I tell people to do, if you want to go fast, what you do is you take that capital and then you buy other businesses. Usually they're going to be smaller businesses than what you just sold. So you sell one business, you buy two businesses. You spend the next year and a half or so building up those businesses. You sell those two businesses, you go buy 4 businesses or 2 bigger businesses, and you spend another year and a half building those up and you sell. And it doesn't take very long to reach this point of just an avalanche of capital that is coming to you if you've been frugal, if you understood your business model and you understand how valuations work. So I've seen friends create $700,000 to $1.3 million in their war chest in as little as 3 years. And other people have created much, much more than that over a period of 5 years. Just kind of depends on what your goals are.
What's the benefit of selling one and buying two, selling two and buying 4 versus keeping one and just growing and growing and growing that?
Great question. So it's a pro and con thing. It's not a black and white thing. It just kind of depends what you want. It's a risk factor is what I would say. So a lot of entrepreneurs, they're obsessed with growth, right? They want more and more and more growth all the time. Show me all the charts going up, right? And so what we all want. It's an exciting part of the job. It's an exciting part of the profession. But what a lot of people don't realize is growth is a double-edged sword. You could grow so fast and so quickly where your own success kills you. I've seen this happen in e-commerce stores, for example, where especially on Amazon FBA, where they have this huge demand. Now their product forecasting is completely wrong because they weren't expecting such a huge amount of demand. They're scrambling, putting things on credit cards, opening up lines of credit to get inventory in as fast as possible. Because if they don't, they're going to lose their ranking on Amazon's marketplace, which will be a major long-term blow, right? In a totally unrelated business model to most people out here. Like I enjoy video games, and there's this game that just launched out of beta, and they were expecting just a few thousand players, but it turns out people really wanted to play this game, and all their servers crashed from their success. And they are a very small team. They're just an indie game development studio. They had no recourse to try to make the servers work, and now all the reviews are tanking, which will be a big black mark for the life of this game, right? So your own success, your own growth can be just as bad potentially as not making any money. Because as you scale up bigger, you're not just scaling up your revenue, you're also scaling up inefficiencies that you didn't even know existed. And those inefficiencies can become these gaping holes that really become alligators for you down the road. So to answer your question, you could indeed just grow one big business and make all this happen. You get kind of the entrepreneurial trope of selling the big 7-8 figure business. Like, I made it, I did it, which I think is a doable route. I think it's easier though, if you, instead of having one big exit, you have many small exits. And by selling your business, like say you had a $600,000, $700,000 business, like, yes, could you have grown that bigger? Probably. But you already know how to grow a business up to that 700K level. So you take that money, you de-risk yourself. So now Google can't screw with you with algorithm or whatever policy or algorithm machine you are using to drive your business, right? They can't screw you on there. You're divorced from that. Now you have real cash flow, real equity, divorced from any algorithms. And then you go in and buy, say, a $300,000 business. You're able to grow that again to a $700,000 valuation, or maybe even more, and it's in the same exact business model. So you already have a roadmap of how to do this, because that's a very important part of the asset flywheel. Like a lot of people think like, oh, I need to diversify, so they'll buy an Amazon FBA business, a content business, maybe an info product business. But this is a very bad idea unless you have a good team and a really solid understanding of all the business models. It's much better for you to always buy a business like the one that you sold, because you already know the roadmap to success that way.
Yeah, and I've heard this from so many people recently. So I talk to a lot of people who are in the middle of selling businesses, or have sold and then bought and then sold, kind of gone through this cycle a couple of times themselves. And what they said is, I know how to do this bit. It took years to figure out, how do I grow it from whatever, 100,000 to 1 million a year, in whatever kind of business it is, or from 50,000 to 400,000. I know that bit, and then I can learn the next bit. I can learn how to grow it from 1 million to 10 million, or 400,000 to 1 million, or whatever it is. But that's not something that you can just pick up quickly. Like these skills it takes so much work, and you have to develop all these systems and so much insight and like real understanding about what needs to happen. And I was listening to a guy. He was hired as the CEO at AppSumo. Noah Kagan had hired this guy, like internally, he'd been working internally, and he promoted him to CEO. And he had grown the business to like about 10 million, I think. I forget the exact number, right? And then he'd fired himself. And he said, I'm going to still work here, but I'm not going to be the CEO anymore, because I don't know how to grow a business from 10 million to 100 million. Like that's not my skill set, but I can do 1 to 10. So he's staying and he's supporting the new person. When that person comes on, they're getting a new person who knows how to grow from 10 to 100. And that person who knows how to grow from 10 to 100 might not know how to grow from 1 to 10, or from getting started to 1, or anything like that. So it's like you get that skill set, and then you leverage that in the same business model, but in a different, it could even be in the same niche, I guess, but like with a different business, with something that's different. I think we both know Trushar. He did something around this kind of model. He had a business, he built it up, he sold it. He bought another business, he built it up, he sold it. And it's like, I'm going to just take a wild guess here, but probably he's going to do that again. Like that's, I'm just going to throw that out there. That's probably what he's going to do. And he's doing great out of that, That makes complete sense to me. I really get that. So where do people go wrong with their thinking about this? It sounds like one of the things is wanting to just keep growing one thing. Is it about, like you mentioned to me before, about people falling in love with their brand versus the business model? Is that kind of what you meant by that?
Yeah, so there's a thing, it's somewhat related to this. So when a person goes to sell a business, say they come to us and they want to sell a business, something that's very common if they've never sold a business is what I call emotional equity. So emotional equity is where you as the entrepreneur value your business far and above what it's actually worth, because it has given you such an awesome life, like allows you to travel the world, stay at home with your family, whatever, right? And buyers are using colder arithmetic. So a lot of times when someone goes to sell privately, they're really shocked at the lowball offers they get, and they get worn down. Whereas when they come with us, we help build the proper expectations there. But and part of that is for falling in love with their brand. And this is one of the like mindset shifts with the asset flywheel. We just talked about growing, like why not just grow a really big business and do this big exit? That's the dream most entrepreneurs have. But like you said, like you need to constantly be learning brand new skill sets to be able to do that. Like, for instance, just for my personal experience. So I started at Empire Flippers almost 6 years ago. April will be 6 years for me, over half a decade. And when I first started, I was just writing blog posts. I could legitimately move the needle of the entire company by doing 4 or 5 blog posts per month. And back then, that's what I did. That was my strategy. But as we've grown from a 4-person company to now over 100 people. And now I'm the head of marketing and all this stuff. Like I could write 50 blog posts in a week and it wouldn't move the needle, right? So I have to think differently. I have to learn new skill sets, new things. And it is legitimately hard. So I often tell people, why have a big exit when you already have the skill sets to have multiple mini exits, and you don't need that many to have a real life changing income, right? Like if you sold 5 businesses, each one is say $600,000, $800,000, so relatively small businesses, that's life changing income for you, right? That's over $2 million over a period of a few years. Most people can retire on that, buy some kind of investment like real estate that's a boring rental or whatever, and just live their life and do whatever they want. So I often challenge this concept of just like one massive business, that there's this other path out there where you can go and have multiple mini exits where you become kind of like your own private equity in that sense.
I got this model I'm kind of working on at the moment. This is which we're probably going to start implementing later this year, maybe early next year, something like that. I want to just throw it out because I think it fits quite neatly into what you're talking about. What we've done over the last few years, we started out as an agency working for people who had course businesses, helping them to build funnels. And what we've started to see is that we over the years, we've managed to improve and improve and improve at that. So now we can on average help people increase their revenue 4.86 times. So on average, we can get someone from, if they come in at 20,000 a month, then they get up to like whatever it is, 96,000 a month. Now, there's then an ongoing piece of work, which is running that site forever. Now, that's not the skill set that we've built, but we have built this one of like increase the revenue, make it worth an awful lot more. So my hypothesis is, and I know that you guys don't, and I know that course businesses have issues in terms of sales and what have you. And I've been through your training. I am aware of that. So let's just assume that that's doable for the moment. So my hypothesis is what we do is we buy sites that are at a certain size that we can afford. We build it up so it's worth more money. We then sell it. We then do that again with, buy another site or 2 sites that are smaller, build them up, and kind of authority sites is the one that works really well because authority sites don't currently have courses. They're massively undervalued. Like the amount that people can make from affiliate links and ads compared to what they can make from course sales is astronomical. Like it's 10 or 20 times more money you can make from it. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And it sounds like, at least from a structural point of view, I'm sure there's lots of details, that kind of fits with what you're talking about here. Is that fair?
Absolutely. So my background is SEO and content marketing, not Amazon FBA, though I know a ton about FBA considering how much we sell. And I agree with you. I think authority sites in particular are the most undervalued business, even at the current multiples. So they're selling at a premium multiples right now. Because most SEOs don't really know marketing. So I have tons and tons of SEO friends, and they just like rank and bank, right? Rank and bank and forget, and go and do it again, and go do it again. And here they have the absolute most valuable traffic in the world, inbound SEO traffic, high intent, and they're losing it out to say 5% commission on Amazon. Now, there's nothing wrong with making money in that way. I think that's actually really great. But most authority sites, depending on the niche, can support many different business models. I have a friend, he turned his into a SaaS because he had a B2B style authority site, and he was able to make a SaaS business out of that. Another person made an info course out of it. Another person created a paid community where they get MRR now from their authority site, monthly recurring revenue, right? So there's all sorts of creative ways of what you can do with an authority site. If you build up a really big authority site, you build a real big community, and let's say you started a Amazon FBA business on the back of that authority site, you are absolutely going to crush the other FBA entrepreneurs out there, because the other FBA entrepreneurs have to rely on Facebook ads or Amazon ads, but you're relying on SEO. So your CAC, your customer acquisition cost, is so far below theirs. You could literally burn money on the paid advertising to squeeze them out, and they can't afford to do anything because their blended CAC is so much higher than yours, right? So authority sites are like one of my favorite business models in the world if you treat it like a real business. But most SEOs don't. They just, like sometimes they don't even care about the content quality, right? They'll just like rank something with backlinks, and that's enough for them. And they don't see the bigger picture of what they could really do with an authority site. I often call this the difference between having a brochure website, which is your very typical authority site. Like, let's say you and I are walking down the street, right, John? I hand you a brochure, and there's like just a few things you might do. You'll probably be weirded out. Why am I getting handed this brochure? But you'll look at it and right. You'll look at it and maybe you buy something or maybe you don't. But the one thing you're definitely going to do is take the brochure and throw it away, regardless of whether you buy something. Versus a media website, it's more like a magazine. You and I are walking down the street. I give you a magazine. You might throw it away still. Maybe you're not interested, or you might buy something, or maybe you won't buy something just yet, but you're interested in the magazine because that has inherent value. And so you keep coming back to the magazine, and eventually you probably will buy something because now this is a brand that you enjoy. Most SEOs, they stop at the brochure site. They never think about how can I create a real media company around what I'm doing. I have a friend, he has an authority site that started off as your very typical Amazon affiliate niche website. And now he's just raised, I think, $17 million for that authority site because it has grown into such a juggernaut media brand in his niche.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, I think what you're saying about like the lack of understanding of just like SEO is a part of marketing, but it's just this one tiny part. And I think that there's all these people who just do not understand what they're sitting on. Like, and we've definitely got them in our audience as well. I think there's people listening to this right now who have authority sites, have a bunch of traffic, and do not realize how much revenue they could get from it. Like if they had courses. And
for sure,
our clients says we only work with people once they've got courses, but the potential to add that in, or, like you're saying, FBA or SaaS or whatever else as well. I'm just, courses is our thing. The potential though is phenomenal. Like, it's just like you've already got all of this traffic, all of these people who would sign up to your email list, they would buy stuff from you, they would buy more from you. And all that you're doing is linking off to an affiliate or an ad. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. Absolutely. Another very common thing I see is, I have my SEO affiliate friends. So be like, hey, how much does my email list add to my valuation? And I'll be like, okay, well, how big is your list? Like, oh, I have 50,000 people. Like, great. So how much revenue has that created for you? You're like, well, what do you mean? I haven't sent out a single email. Like, oh, so this is actually hurting your valuation. You would have been better just sending them to the affiliate link because now you have this like list that when a buyer takes over, like, who is this? Like, why have I all this spam? So like it's another common thing I see of SEOs, like sometimes being a little bit too myopic, not seeing like the full blown holistic picture of what they're able to do with that email list. But yeah, there's just so much revenue potential for a well-ran site if the niche is broad enough. And you could tack on all sorts of business models, like what you said with info courses. Like that info course might become one revenue stream of the site. Another revenue stream would be the ads and the affiliate stuff.
Yeah.
Another revenue stream might be the e-commerce stuff. And the cool thing about the affiliate side is, like, say you wanted to do the Amazon FBA stuff as another revenue stream. If you're an Amazon associate affiliate, Amazon tells you what your website's selling, right? So it's almost like you're getting paid for the product research of what your audience would buy from you. So you could just go source your top thing that you're selling through Amazon Associates and then change out your Amazon Associates link to your FBA product listing now. And it's going to sell because you are already selling it, right?
It's like a cheat code, isn't it?
Yes. This is the power of an understanding audience. I think a lot of people don't give enough attention to. Like, I spend a ton of time understanding what my audience likes. So for example, at Empire Flippers, I'm marketing to like literally the hardest people in the world. I'm in a make money online niche of people who actually do make money. And because they actually do make money online as entrepreneurs, they're extremely jaded to all sorts of marketing because they've seen it all, all that kind of stuff. So one of the things I often do is like, I'll pretend to be an over the top guru next to like a bad Photoshop Lambo because they know the joke. They get what I'm doing, right? And so it cuts through all that stuff of me just being absolutely ridiculous, like one of these internet marketers that most of them hate. That endears them to me a bit. But I look at my audience all the time, like, what are they talking about? What do they want to know more about? And that evolves over time. But most people, they don't use the data. And you're like, it's in your name. I know you do it, data-driven marketing, right? Like, look at the data of what your audience is telling you, not just like the keywords they're going after. You can use things like SparkToro to really understand, like, what else are they talking about that I can also ingratiate myself into their culture and speak their words. And all of this leads to the power of what an authority site can give you, because authority sites can give you an amazing amount of data. Like, it's like the hidden gold mine of everything, right?
So if someone's thinking about this, heard this concept, they've recognized the potential here, they want to do it. One of the elements that seems like a big deal, and I know has changed over the last few years, is valuations. And it seems to me, and I really want to kind of understand a lot more about this, the multiples that businesses have been getting has been going up phenomenally in the last, I don't know, like 2 years, something like that. I was listening to an old podcast from like 10 years ago, and they were talking about selling an authority site. I think it was like 12 months profit or 18 months profit. And I was like,
Yeah.
whoa. And then I knew this was like 3 years bottom line. And then I've been hearing recently, you know, FBA businesses, people talking about selling for 6 times bottom line. And you mentioned there was one that was for 7 times. And I think authority sites is kind of a lot higher than it used to be as well. Can you talk us through like what's kind of the range that people can expect with these kind of businesses?
Sure. Just as an FYI, EF, we always value it on a monthly multiple, but it's
Okay.
if you divide what I'm about to say by 12, you'll get the 3x, 4x, or whatever. So affiliate sites, content sites, they typically will range between 28 and 45x. So divide that by 12, you get the annual EBITDA. And that value has gone significantly up. Like when I first joined with EF, like the multiples were closer to 19 to 23x. So that's a significant increase across the board. And what you're seeing is happening is the maturity of the space. So if you look at like a traditional offline business, their valuation multiple tends or used to be a lot higher than a online business because online businesses were really new. They didn't have a lot of the maturity that they currently have now. So now what we're seeing is the online business is hitting this point of parity with your more traditional offline business, say like a laundromat or a car wash or whatever, right? So there's a lot more trust in all these businesses than there used to be, which is very, very important because part of the transaction is largely based on trust, right? Like there's a whole part of a valuation called goodwill, which makes up the large portion of the valuation. What is the goodwill of the brand? And that's what people are buying. So you're seeing that. Another part of the reason why valuations have gone so dramatically up is because of the black swan event known as COVID, right? Where everyone was indoors and shopping online. Like while Main Street businesses were shuttering, our friends in the online space were having the best years ever. Like more wealth than ever before was created for my friends in e-commerce and other digital businesses. So people are seeing that and they want to get in on the action. Like I actually have friends who are commercial real estate investors. They own all these strip malls and apartment buildings. They sold off a huge portion of their portfolio to buy online businesses because they saw this can get me way better yield, right? So you're seeing all that kind of stuff. So trust, more money coming into the space, more people realizing the power of these businesses. Because if you look at even a simple $100,000 content site, that would like valuation, that would be making you anywhere between like 3 to 5K a month, somewhere around there. Like that's pure profit. And you compare that to with like $100,000 house, like a rental, like you might be lucky to be making $150 a month in profit off of that, right? Like once you take out all the expenses and the cost for repairs and things like that, like so the differences between them are just absolutely massive. So that's part of what's like driving all of this valuation stuff. And I don't think valuations are going to go up significantly more anytime soon. They might increase a little bit, might decrease a little bit, but I think where we're at right now is kind of going to be the new normal going forward.
Got it. And what, out of curiosity, what is the difference with one of those offline businesses that I don't know if now is a good time for it, but like, did it used to be about that kind of 28 to 45 times range that you're talking about? Or were they like a laundromat a few years ago? Was that like higher than that? Or was it somewhere in that kind of range?
I probably would have been that kind of range. I'm not as familiar with offline businesses, by the way, so I might I might be overstepping my own expertise. But they're similarly priced to what businesses on our marketplace right now are priced at. So, and these businesses have a lot more fixed costs than an online business, right? So their profit is actually much lower when you really look at their free cash flows. So, but yeah, they would be being sold at similar multiples as what you're seeing, like content sites and FBA businesses being sold at. So many of them for far less. So like not very rare is that a laundromat going to get a 7x, right? That's like a SaaS level multiple. So that's very unlikely. You're more looking at like 2.5 to 4x for most offline businesses.
Got it. Okay. All right. So we've covered kind of the concept of all of this and pulled that all together. what I'd love to understand now is what kind of results might people expect over the years if they do this? I know you've modeled this out as like how this could work. Could you talk us through that?
Sure. So the hardest part of the whole thing is the first business, because that's the one where you really need to hustle to make it happen, get traction. And that's why most businesses fail. Like, you know, this with probably working with your clients, all the data you've seen, like most people fail at hitting the target market and finding that product market fit. So that's the first real challenge, building that first real business and documenting everything you do, because that is going to save you a ton of time for later on. Once you sell that business, that's when the real fun begins. Now, you have two paths here. If you want to be more conservative, you can take the capital and build a new business, and you have a budget, which is like unheard of for a bootstrap entrepreneur, right? So you're already at a big advantage. But I like to go fast, and most people in our space, I feel like they also like to go fast. So buying a business is way, way faster. And I'll just give a few reasons why that is. One, the business already has product market fit, and you get to skip between 18 months and 36 months of time that it took that entrepreneur to get to that product market fit. So you basically get to time travel to where all the hard stuff is already done, and you have all the data. And as you know, if you have data, you can tweak and split test things for huge results. Like if you're starting something from scratch and you start A/B split testing a capture page that gets zero traffic, well, you're going to get zero results, right? You have no data coming in, you have nothing, right? Versus if you do that with a page that's getting 10,000, 40,000 visitors a month, you could increase your revenue by 20, 30% by spending an hour. Like this is something we just recently did. So we did some new SEO for our valuation tool, and we increased our leads by 140%. And while the traffic isn't a lot, the fact that we increased our leads so dramatically and our average business size right now is sitting a little bit underneath $600,000, that's a pretty good 5-hour investment we made, right? But you can't do that with a business that you built from scratch. So that's one reason why I say buying a business is so much better. It's already going to be making money. It's already has the product market fit. It already has the data for you to play with. And the other key thing here is you can sell that business much quicker than a business you built from scratch. Because a business you built from scratch, you really need at least 24 months of data. And you know, a big part of that 24 months is going to be that startup phase where you're making almost nothing, maybe even losing money as you're trying to build that traction, right? Versus a business you buy, that part of the business is already over. So you hold on to this business for 6 months, say 6 or 8 months, you could turn around and sell that business, which you cannot sell a business you start from scratch in most cases within 6 months. So just like very few buyers are going to be looking at it unless it's a very small business. But even then, like a lot of people won't be as interested in it. Versus a business that you buy, you can turn around and sell it much, much quicker because you might have owned it for 6 months, but really it's been around for 40 months, right? Because of all the other time that the entrepreneur spent. So that gives you the flexibility to sell much, much quicker. The fastest one I've ever seen, and I don't recommend this at all, but it's a really funny story. There was a guy who bought a tiny affiliate site from us. It was about $100,000, and he knew that there was a lot of competing buyers. And while it was still in our migration, we hadn't even started transferring the business over to him yet. He asked, like, "Hey, it seemed like a lot of people were interested in this. Would anyone be interested in buying it for 115K?" I was like, "We'll ask the buyers that were looking." So we asked, and someone was like, "Yes, I will buy it for 115K." So he didn't even own the business for like 10 minutes and made 15K. This is something you cannot do if you're building a business from scratch. Now, I've never seen that happen again, by the way. So that is not a strategy I'm recommending, but it's just a highlight of why buying a business can allow you to go so much faster. So once you do all that, you tweak the businesses, you grow it over a period of 5 years. It is not terribly unreasonable to get to say $3 to $5 million in your bank account at the end of this. So the first business is the hardest one. Then you buy two smaller businesses, you build those up, and then you sell them. And where you go and buy two more that are bigger businesses, or buy four more of a similar level, and you repeat this just 2 or 3 times. And at the end of that 5-year period, you're sitting on a huge amount of wealth. And the cool thing is, because you're selling these businesses, you're consistently de-risking yourself from the powers that be that you have no control over. Things like supply chain, things like algorithm updates, things like policy changes, things like Facebook shutting down your ad account. These are things you're constantly divorcing yourself from and getting the real equity. Because the thing you and I were talking about right before we started recording, that I feel like it's almost like a bait and switch thing. Like we get into entrepreneurship, like freedom, master my own fate, fire my boss, so be my own boss. And then as you become successful, you realize like, shit, I'm on this like hamster wheel that's just spinning ever faster, where I need to do more and more stuff. But if you actually exit the business, all the dreams of that entrepreneurial freedom actually comes true. So throughout the asset flywheel, you are consistently getting yourself to this point of freedom further and further, where if a big like, oh crap, algorithm update happens, you're going to be okay because you've consistently cashed out as you're building up your net worth. So that's all part of the lessons. And one other thing I'll say on this too, to our conversation earlier on growth, like I have had friends who they want to sell the business and they know, okay, if I do 6 months of work, I can increase my valuation by 10%. And of course, everyone wants to increase their valuation and sell it for the most amount possible. But there's a real risk here if you hold on to a business for too long. Like in this example, my friend, I think his website was valued at around $400,000, and he was going to do all this SEO work was going to take 6 months, so he could ultimately sell it for like 450, something like that. Well, during that 6 months, there was a Google algorithm update. His site totally got tanked. He ended up selling it for about 230. So, which one was better? Like gunning for that extra 50K, or ending up losing like $170,000 because you didn't sell at a quick enough time. So I always tell people, don't try to just maximize your sell, maximize the opportunity you get when you do sell. So those doors of possibilities again, like would that extra 50K really make such a huge difference versus the 400K? My answer is probably not really for most entrepreneurs. That $400,000 could, like in your pocket today, could be much more effective to growing and buying more businesses than an extra 50K you get in 6 months. So these are the kind of things that you should be thinking about with your asset flywheel. How long should you hold on to something? When is a good time to sell? When does the valuation make sense where it can get you significantly closer to your personal and business goals? So these are all the things entrepreneurs should be thinking about with this kind of plan.
Yeah, and I think as well, like it's not just might the Google traffic tank, but it's the opportunity cost, isn't it? It's like, what else could you have done in that 6 months?
Right.
If you got 6 months further ahead, you got it for the 400,000. You went and you did another one. Maybe that next 6 months you're not making more than another 40,000 or 50,000 or whatever theoretically he could have got. But the 6 months after and the 6 months after that, it's like you're 6 months further behind than if you just cranked on and moved on to what's the next biggest opportunity. Because there's different growth rates, aren't there? There's sometimes you're able to grow something enormously. Like for us, our particular skill set is we can go in and if you've got courses already and you've got traffic, we can then 5 times the revenue of that business. But what we don't have is then something after that. Like we can keep it at that higher level and we could gradually increase it. But like that's the main thing that we can do. Yep. So probably the right thing for us to do is think, okay, cool, great. Now let's sell that, move on, do it again. Because otherwise we've got to learn the new skill set and what have you. And so, yeah, that's fascinating.
That's exactly right. We have a type of customer we call flipper Freds. This is where we get the second part of our name. And some of them, like the thing that they're the master at is conversion rate optimization, right? So they'll buy those businesses, do what you are basically doing, like 5xing the revenue of the business. And 6 months later, they sell that business and go find another one like that. Because like we were talking about earlier, a lot of SEOs, for instance, aren't very good at marketing. They don't understand the UX stuff, the copywriting stuff, the pains and pleasures of their audience. But the CRO person does. So they understand how to figure that out. So they can come in and make that super valuable traffic to spit out even more gold. And then they sell it because like what you said, they might not know how to go to the next level from there. And they don't have any interest. Like they have a specific skill that allows them to do this assembly line of acquiring, tweaking and building and then exiting over and over again. So that's how the asset flywheel works.
I love this. I feel like you've pulled together so many different threads, so many different kind of strands that I've been thinking about over the last couple of years. And you've made it into like a structure. Like, okay, this is how this thing works. This is why it is that some people should be starting businesses. Some people should be scaling businesses and how much you should scale it and what have you. I love this. This is smart, Greg.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. It's something I've noticed. And, being an entrepreneur is hard, but this industry changed my life. And I think it's really cool to be able to, from what I've seen on my end, to help entrepreneurs change their life as well. Because like, if you're an entrepreneur, it isn't all roses, right? It's a lot of stress as well, right? I have friends who have businesses that are making them, 20, 30K a month. and they work 4 hours a week. And to an outsider, like, why are you stressed out? But they don't realize that, like, yeah, they're physically working 4 hours a week, but mentally their business is on their mind like 80 hours a week that they can't escape, right? So I like helping entrepreneurs figure out what's like the next step, how to use that skill to build real lasting wealth that they can like go and do whatever they want, which a lot of them just go and build more businesses, right? It becomes like a passion thing. But now they're building a business with safety net, like, hey, if something goes wrong, you're going to be totally fine, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was fascinated when you were saying about like, okay, they can take that money, put it in something low risk, go stay on the beach. I'm like, I don't think so. I think what we're going to see is people just keep growing more and more and bigger businesses. Like most of the people I know, they love this stuff. You know, they're like, they're not everybody, but a lot of people are not just in this for the money. They love the game, you know, and
yeah, it's an art form, right? Yeah. I will say a lot of them do move to the beach while they're building their next big thing. So the beach might still be involved. Yeah. But yeah, entrepreneurship is super fun. It's an art form in a lot of ways, you know, like you're literally building something from nothing. Well, if you're buying something, you're making something even better than what it used to be. And it's just fun, right? The money is a side effect of having a fun time playing the game.
For sure. This is amazing, Greg. I really appreciate your time today. I think our audience is going to get a lot from this as well. If people heard this and they want to learn some more, they want to look up like how to value a business, where can they go to learn about that?
Sure. So if they want to see the value of their business, they can go to empireflippers.com/valuation-tool, or you just type in Empire Flippers valuation tool. Like I said, we just did a lot of SEO. It should be very easy to find. That will give you a rough ballpark of what your business is worth. That's based on real sales data from actual businesses we sold on the marketplace. And if you're interested in doing your first acquisition, I highly recommend going to empireflippers.com/registration. You can sign up for a free account. That will get you access to all the different due diligence tools we have. And you can also set up a criteria call. And those criteria calls is where we help brand new buyers understand, you know, what's important to them, like what would be a good business for them. And also things like, which we didn't talk about here, about like working capital versus acquisition capital and what those two things mean. Because just because you have $400,000 as your capital to buy a business doesn't mean you should buy a $400,000 business. I recommend having like 20% working capital for what I call the oh shit days. Like if an the SEO problem happens, like now you at least have the liquidity to hire an expert to help you through the storm, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
You know, things like that we coach entrepreneurs on, because if you're in the game for a long time, you're eventually going to have a very stormy day. That's just normal. It's part of the whole experience. You and I have been around long enough, John, to probably have seen 6 different eras of people saying SEO is dead or so and so is dead, even though we have friends still making millions in all of those things. So it's just a natural path of the entrepreneur. So we can help you on either side of this, whether you're looking to sell or buy.
Amazing. Thanks so much again, Greg. And for everybody listening, if you found this interview useful and you want to get future episodes, please subscribe wherever you listened. And we will see you next time.